I got to give her a hug goodbye, and she was crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And I just was like, maybe she's just so excited. I cherished that moment. That was the last time I had her in my arms.
Everything felt so right.
I looked at Brian and I said, "You better take good care of her. Keep her safe."
He was a liar. Nothing he said in those stories were true. He was a coward to the day that he died.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder a Podcast. We're back once again with a brand new case and we're excited to share it with you. It's a very different case, but we are joined once again by Ben Carter.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. We are 2/3 of the series down. What a series it's been, boys. What a series it's been, boys. How are we, producer Dan?
Really good, actually. The weather is absolutely phenomenal today. I've actually caught the sun a little bit. You can't really see it, but I sat outside on the decking for 5 minutes and I burned straight away. And I obviously wouldn't say excited to dive into today's case, but I'm a bit tentative about it. Obviously, like a lot of people, I saw the recent documentary on Netflix, and although I knew about the case at the time, watching particularly the body cam stuff is mortifying, and how in favour it was of Brian. Yeah, so eager to get into it and talk about it.
Yeah, it's a very different one. I think we said before with the Chris Watts one, it felt different in the sense that there was so much footage and body cam footage and other bits and pieces. And this feels like it's even a step further along that, with it, being in the YouTube world with vlog cameras and outtakes and, as you said, body cam footage as well. This one felt like we had a lot of access to it. This documentary had footage, within it that you could see microaggressions and things like that, which you never really could see, or, seeing what actually happens behind closed doors. You could kind of see all of that in the footage. So it's a very, very interesting one, and we're very excited to share it with you guys and get your opinions as well.
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely fascinating case, particularly the stuff that came out after the headlines were made. The family involvement is, for me, there's so much heartbreak and frustration in this case, but fucking hell, when the parents of the perpetrator become involved, though they would state they weren't involved, that is when your blood is already at boiling point and it boils completely over. It's there's so much to get into, and can completely understand the intrigue and the upset surrounding the case. So this week it is, of course, the murder of Gabby Petito, also referred to as the case of Brian Laundrie, the van life murder-suicide, the Gabby Petito story, a body in Bridgerton, the Laundrie family versus the world, and the last days of Gabby Petito. Cryptic clue, I feel like people probably would have got it. That former Aston Villa striker is very small. Gabby Ekbon-Lahore, striker. Petito small. Gabby Petito.
I think if they have any Premier League knowledge or listen to Talk Sport, and listen to Talk Sport and listen to that absolute weapon, they might know who he is. So let's get into the case.
In the last 2.5 decades, the prominence of social media in our daily lives has risen to unprecedented new levels. In the world of true crime specifically, it has proven to be somewhat of a double-edged sword. Whilst community-based platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Reddit and YouTube have helped to solve cases and have been especially vital in some, they have also contributed to a rise in the spreading of misinformation, false accusations and internet witch hunts. We have seen cases that have captivated the public's imagination on multinational scales. The Casey Anthony case of 2008, the Luca Magnotta manhunt of 2012, the disappearance of Alyssa Lamb in 2013, and the Delphi murders in 2017. As an increasing number of people magnetically follow real-time updates, speculate on suspects and theories, and analyse an ever-growing list of evidence. However, Nothing before or since has captivated a global audience or impacted social media quite like the Gabby Petito case of 2021. In July of that year, what started out as a road trip of a lifetime across America quickly became one of the most widely followed and unpredictable true crime cases in history. 22-year-old Gabby Petito, an aspiring travel vlogger, set off on a cross-country journey with her 23-year-old fiancé, Brian Laundrie. The pair documented their trip, which would sadly last only an estimated 56 days, adventuring through picturesque national parks and serene landscapes. But when Brian abruptly returned home alone with the couple's camper van and refused to speak to anybody about Gabby's whereabouts, suspicion immediately erupted. As the case became the most trending topic across all leading platforms, social media users dissected the couple's final Instagram posts and speculated about Gabby's possible whereabouts in the most frantic of manners. Police body cam footage eventually surfaced, further fueling fears, which provided a chilling insight into the couple's relationship behind closed doors of their van. And as weeks slowly turned to months, the agonising missing persons search evolved into an explosive nationwide manhunt fueled by mystery, conspiracy, and disbelief.
What happened between Gabby and Brian in the final days leading up to her disappearance? Why did Brian refuse to speak to investigators or Gabby's family immediately after her disappearance? How did social media and van life communities play a pivotal role in helping to track Gabby's last known movements? And when did Brian Laundrie go missing himself, ultimately leading to one of the most captivating and heartbreaking true crime cases in recent history?
So we're going to begin with a brief bit of background on Gabby's life and explore how she came to meet Brian before moving on to the detailed timeline of the events of the case. So a bit of background on Gabby. She was born Gabrielle Venora Petito on the 19th of March 1999 in the hamlet of Blue Point, New York. As fate would have it, we are actually filming this episode on what would and what should have been her 26th birthday. Gabby was the eldest of two children born to Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt, having a younger brother called TJ, whom she was extremely close to. Though she would go on to have another 5 younger half-siblings through relationships developed when each of her parents later remarried. Joe and Nicole were both 20-year-olds when Gabby was born, and each of them admitted to feeling terrified that they were now responsible for the life and well-being of their perfect, innocent baby. Though Joe and Nicole were divorced when Gabby was just 6 months old, the family were incredibly close-knit, and they agreed that they would put their child's needs ahead of their own, forever. The parents quickly noticed that their young daughter was highly confident, free-spirited, and adventurous, but still had a side to her that was quite dependent. Nicole went on to marry Jim Schmidt in April of 2005, whilst Joe went on to marry Tara Wickman 4 months later. Gabby was just 6 years old when both these weddings happened, and is said to have adjusted well to her new families. Her mother, Nicole, recalled the first few moments of Gabby's life.
She was a big baby. She came up crying, loud and ready to start life. I had my hands full immediately. It was nice to have that mother-daughter bond. She was just such a loving kid. People would meet her and they would just fall in love. She had this presence. I don't know what it was just magical. I loved all those years with her.
So as we mentioned, half-siblings would soon follow as a result of her parents' second marriages. During these years, Gabby was described as an incredibly doting and incredibly caring older sister. She loved being outside and playing with her siblings and friends in the neighbourhood. She loved to skateboard and listen to music. She had an especially close relationship with both of her parents and was said to have gotten well with her new step-parents.
As a youngster, Gabby developed a love for art as well as the outdoors. She would constantly spend her free time out in the garden drawing pictures or making paintings for her family, and she would develop a talent for this over time, being able to create amazing pieces of art in 10 minutes or less, according to her stepfather, Jim. Whilst Gabby would do this, she would arrange her paper and materials in a very organised, very clean, meticulous fashion, which was a trait that she carried over to many other elements of her life, leading Gabby and her family to believe that she had OCD, which is something very much to keep in mind as this case develops, though Gabby was never officially diagnosed with this. Gabby attended local preschool and junior schools before going on to attend Bayport Blue Point High School, which is actually quite fun to say. Bayport Blue Point High School.
Bayport Blue Point.
Bet you could do a really good rap about that, probably.
Go on, Tom.
He is a in-house rapper.
So, I
got nothing.
being put on the spot on her.
Whilst at this high school, she immediately gravitated towards the school's art community and had absolutely no issues relating to her studies or making new friends. She quickly became very popular and had a large circle of both male and female friends. Her father Joe described a young Gabby as follows.
She was just awesome to be around, you know. Her smile, her eyes, all that stuff. That smile didn't change, and those eyes didn't change over the years. I just remember melting when I saw her. Everybody loved her. She had me wrapped around her finger so quickly. That didn't take long. She was, always, just my perfect little girl.
I just searched the school to see interesting things about it, and yeah, there's nothing to work with.
That's the thing. It doesn't always land. I mean, I still try and include something, but there just wasn't much going on. It's a hamlet. We don't get too many hamlets, so I sort of felt like I needed to mention it was a hamlet, but not a lot of interesting early doors stuff.
No.
In 2013, when Gabby was 14 years old, she and some of her stepbrothers appeared in a music video for the song Irreplaceable, not that one, by Deb Henson, that was created in tribute of and to raise awareness about gun violence in response to the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting that had occurred in the December of the previous year. The shooting, which we've covered previously on the podcast, occurred 2.5 hours away from Gabby's hometown, and news of the shooting completely devastated the entire country, particularly those in communities closest to it. In the music video, Gabby can be seen drawing under a tree before holding up a sign that says, "I'm irreplaceable." Can't remember the Beyonce video. Is it good? One of my good mates as a kid used to have it as his alarm song. Really weird choice of alarm song. To the left, to the left.
I don't remember any videos now. Only the only ones from Kerrang and Scuzz, really. Or MTV2, but not
VH1.
No, occasionally.
You missed all of that, didn't you, Dan?
Yeah. I had a German one to watch.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Can't remember the name. Well, it might have been the German version of MTV, but I didn't have
VH1.
Yeah.
MTV's
Good.
fine.
Works. 4 years later, in 2017, Gabby graduated from Bay Point Blue Point.
It's fun.
Oh,
it's fun.
It is fun.
Yep.
Bay Point Blue Point. No, Bayport Blue Point.
Yes, sir.
I'll just clarify that for our listeners. Gabby graduated from Bayport Blue Point, where she then made the decision to move almost 700 miles south to the town of Carolina Beach, North Carolina. Here, an 18-year-old Gabby started working as a hostess and in the kitchen of a nearby restaurant called Nile Cafe, whilst also applying to study at Cape Fear Community College. Gabby is said to have loved living in a hotter climate and adored being close to the boardwalk and ocean, but she would only remain in North Carolina for the next 16 months, as a new chapter of her life was about to begin, perhaps unexpectedly.
Have you boys ever thought about living close to the ocean? It's not as appealing here, is it? Because we've not really got the best. I mean, the south coast is nice.
I'm not drawn
really
to
like
the ocean, to be fair.
Whitley Bay.
Whitley Bay is nice.
Yeah.
Often when I've been there throughout the years, I've been very lucky with the weather. It's been sunny. So that's glorious. And it's the sea is quite dramatic around there as well. And so yeah, I can see the appeal for sure. But yeah, it's not as obviously if you're in a hotter climate to be a lot more appealing.
I'd prefer to live on a lake.
Yeah, I could see that.
Do you prefer a mountain in the garden, Dan, or a lake?
Excellent question. I would have to go lake, actually, because I like being near bodies of water. Bodies of contained water.
Bodies in water?
Bodies of contained water.
Okay, sorry.
We learned a lot about you this series.
Yeah, maybe too
A
much.
couple of weeks ago.
That made the cut, yeah?
Oh, it made the cut.
Oh, yeah.
No, that wasn't contained water, was it?
No.
Anyway, during her time studying in Bayport Blue Point, love it. Fantastic. Did I say that right?
You did.
Thank you. Gabby had a friend in her friendship group by the name of Brian Laundrie. Brian was raised in close proximity to Gabby, initially living less than 2 miles away from her. Their paths crossed when he was a junior and she was a sophomore at the same high school. He was a few months older than she was and was described by some friends as appearing like a narc. As he was balding...
Show off.
As he was balding in his mid-teens and had also started to grow a beard before many of their other male friends. Brian, who had been described as socially awkward and somewhat quiet and reserved, had already attempted to ask one of his close female friends if they were best friends or one another's true love.
Just to kind of go over narc, in case anyone listening doesn't know what they mean by that. It's the thought of him being there as like an undercover. He's like an older person undercover, maybe policeman or 22 Jump Street kind of vibe.
Street, yeah.
But yeah, because he's grown a beard. There's always people knew he can grow a beard a lot quicker than anyone else. And the fact he was bald, and people were starting to think, who is this lad?
Yeah, the yearbook photo they showed in the documentary he does look about sort of late 20s at 17, which I suppose you could get around in quite easily of drinks.
Sure.
I still can't grow a beard.
But you look like you'd be a narc. You could still be a narc there.
No.
Yeah, I could see a little cigarette packet in that sleeve of yours there.
Good job.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's all right.
When this friend declined Brian's advances, he seemed to then shift his attention to Gabby. However, according to friends of Brian, he and Gabby fell for one another like love at first sight. Brian had been renting a townhouse in Long Island when he met Gabby in a deli, who allegedly immediately embraced him as the pair struggled to find the words to speak to one another.
Yeah, I found lots of kind of conflict in information about how they first met and how quickly they were smitten with one another. Obviously, the way Brian has told people, it was very kind of love at first sight. We'll talk about his proposal soon because, again, I'm not sure I believe him exactly how that happened. But other people say they knew each other for ages. And as they got older, he basically assembled a table, didn't he, with this friend that he then wrote her a poem and said, are we best friends or are we soulmates or whatever? And their friendship kind of dissolved away after that moment. And then he, kind of moved on to Gabby. So I'm not sure who to believe here. If they went to school with each other, then they probably didn't meet in a deli.
Yeah, unless there's a deli, very posh school, if you had a deli.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
Cheese counter. Yeah, it's not sure if it's necessary, but yeah, no, I mean, sometimes the schools are just massive, aren't they? So maybe they wouldn't. But yeah, it is a bit murky. I mean, I think it's like that friend must have thought, who didn't reciprocate the love towards Brian, that they definitely dodged a bullet there, but maybe they saw something within him that didn't sit right with them. But sadly for Gabby, she was smitten quite quickly. Either way, the pair entered a relationship around March of 2019 when Gabby had just turned 20. It's not completely clear when the pair went official and when they first started dating, as friends and family recalled that Gabby was very tight-lipped about their relationship until the point that it was clearly very serious. The pair shared a passion for art, music and travel, and were clearly very much infatuated with one another. Gabby would create vivid pieces of art to display her infatuation with Brian, whilst Brian would write in his journal that he seemed to have found genuine happiness in Gabby. Yeah, Gabby's artwork in the documentary, they show a lot of it throughout it. She's very talented, very creative with her artwork, and they don't seem to make, well, I don't know, you wouldn't put them together because she is so outgoing, he's so quiet, and they seem to be quite like different personalities from the start. But I guess it's kind of that yin and yang kind of opposites attract, maybe.
Yeah.
By December of 2019, Gabby and Brian had been dating for 9 months. At this point, the pair made the big decision to move to the city of Northport, Florida, to live together with Brian's parents, Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, who had recently moved to Florida. At first, Gabby's parents were a little apprehensive of her moving across the country to live with a young man that they'd only met a handful of times, but they were reassured by the fact that his parents would also be close to them. Initially, Gabby was said to have a good relationship with Brian's mother, Roberta. However, as time passed, Roberta appeared to develop a sense of resentment towards her son's new girlfriend, potentially changing Gabby's postage address back to her parents' house in New York in an effort to suggest that she would not be staying in Florida for too long, which is incredibly bizarre and not very subtle behaviour from the mum there.
Yeah, incredibly bizarre and not very subtle behaviour from the mum is something that will occur throughout the episode. For me, both parents behave, in my opinion, quite poorly throughout this episode, but specifically Roberta. A very, very awful behaviour. Disgusting, in fact.
Like horrible vibes, yeah.
Horrible vibes, man.
Disgusting.
I think it's the kind of like the jealousy she was feeling because she wasn't getting as much attention from him, and that weird parental jealousy of a partner just feels very icky in my mind anyway. But yeah, she definitely betrayed that kind of vibe. During the back end of 2019 and the early part of 2020, the couple went on their first road trip across the country together. The pair would regularly upload different posts and stories to social media to display how happy and in love they were. On this trip, they travelled the width of the country from New York to California, stopping in Las Vegas, Yosemite National Park, Pismo Beach, and many other locations en route.
Love all that. I did a little coast to coast. No, not those years. It's not even close. 2015, 2016. Did East Coast to West Coast in it's called Trek America. I don't think they exist anymore. But we stopped at all those places apart from Pismo Beach. Loved it. But it was with a big group of strangers. And that time in a van, obviously we stayed in hotels and campsites along the way, but still loads of hours every day in a van. And that can get, if you're with the wrong people, But some of them were lovely.
But
and I suppose I wasn't, I wasn't everyone's taste, was I?
Yeah, fair enough.
Cheers. I've got to back myself more, haven't I?
Nah.
Don't do that.
You went to the West Coast recently, Tom, didn't you, as well? A few years back?
A few years back now. That would have been, I can't remember when, but it's Santa Barbara, really like there. We didn't San Francisco, Yosemite. Yeah, no, it was really, we didn't spend long enough in Yosemite. That's one regret. I would love to go back and come do that properly and explore, but no, yeah, it is. It's one of the countries where it's not boring to drive across as well. Like the UK is very dull to drive around, but in America, it does feel like you are going through like drastically different looking places. Though Yosemite driving around there was slightly terrifying with the lack of barriers on the sides of the road.
Yeah. Whilst living in Florida, Gabby and Brian both started working at their local Publix food and pharmacy, where Gabby started working as a pharmacy technician and Brian worked in the grocery department. For the first time in her life, Gabby wasn't her happy, vibrant, outgoing self. She no longer had regular social outings, she no longer had close contact with her friends and family, and she silently struggled with life in Florida for a brief period. In early 2020, she made the decision to download Bumble BFF, or Bumble for Friends, where she soon matched with a young lady called Rose Davis. The pair immediately hit it off. It is clear that they had very similar interests and energies, and as a result, they started hanging out at least twice a week. Rose was, at the time, a delivery driver for Domino's, and Gabby would often join her in her car and keep her company during deliveries. The pair would quickly become partners in crime and became the closest of friends. Eventually, Gabby started spending so much time with Rose that Brian asked to meet her. Rose described meeting Brian for the first time. "We were hanging out so much that Gabby said Brian wants to meet you, so we went to the beach together. He kind of just sat right at the back and read his book while Gabby and I hung out. It was very weird. It felt like a parent was watching us on a play date. I told my mum there was something off about him, and it gradually became more and more clear." That was a bit strange.
Yeah, I do remember that in the documentary, and it does feel very odd. And yeah, he's just kind of lingering around. He's not being particularly rude or anything like that. It's just not involved, and it's kind of the point where you're like, why is he here? But then it kind of then goes, is he there because he wants to keep an eye on what's being said, or very, very weird.
Yeah, he does seem quite introverted and like off in the back with his book. But I think it's the fact that he said, yeah, I'd love to meet her. Let's go to the beach. And then they set this up and he just kind of is aloof.
It is, yeah, I can see why it made it feel uneasy for sure. But I guess there wasn't, other than it's a bit weird, there wasn't enough going on to like, for her to feel the need to kind of speak to Gabby about him.
Going back to Bumble BFF as well, Bumble for Friends, we would probably all match, right? Wouldn't we? I would say so.
Do you think?
Confidently, actually. Yeah. Looking for something a bit different.
Nah, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dan will be looking for motorbike friends. Because it's
not just motorbike friends.
A gang.
Yeah, but it's more just so because you could go and enjoy your hobby.
Yeah.
With people. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah, you two be very much about golf.
Yeah, maybe,
Lately.
yeah.
Still waiting on that invite.
Yeah, I've invited you.
I have invited you.
Right at the start. I wasn't confident enough.
Oh, no.
I'm still not confident enough.
Just imagine the golf bag on the back of the motorbike. Come on.
We've both fit in a sidecar. If you wanted to get a little sidecar for us.
That'd be quite a big.
Look sick on the.
What, both in one sidecar?
I wouldn't feel comfortable with that.
Share it. Why don't you fit? No. Why would you not feel comfortable with that?
I'll just drive. Meet you there.
I'll go in the sidecar, Dan.
Yeah.
My hair can roll flutter in
my
the wind.
Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Oh, no, Wallace. He's just very toxic, isn't he, Wallace?
I don't think intentionally toxic.
Mm.
But yeah, maybe. I wouldn't say definitely.
I don't think you can do tentative matching, though, can you? It's just
so probably
yes
not.
or no.
Probably no, then.
In June... In June of 2020, not long after America went into lockdown as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, both Gabby and Brian quit their jobs at Publix. The pair then went on a series of camping trips to Soap Creek in Georgia, as well as different parts of rural Florida. They celebrated Gabby's 21st birthday together, and not long after this, the pair went on a camping trip to the middle of nowhere by a lake. Dan's dream. Where apparently, completely out of the blue, Brian made the decision to propose to Gabby. He did this both without an engagement ring and without the family's blessing. However, he would later claim to friends, and Gabby would very quickly back him up when he retold this story, that apparently as he was on one knee and proposing to her, a firefly landed on Gabby's ring finger at the very moment he asked her to be his wife, which the pair went on to believe was nature's way of telling them that they were meant to be. What do we think on that then?
Didn't happen. I also think, getting caught up in the moment and proposing without a ring, I think it's okay.
I think it's good. I don't think you need a ring. You don't need a ring. You don't need to spend loads of money on a ring.
I didn't say spend loads of money.
Sounded like it.
Nah, I didn't propose. I proposed with Ketty's grandma's ring.
Beautiful.
Oh.
After asking for permission from the dad, it was given to me, and I knew how close she was to her grand, so I proposed with that. But
that's the big part, isn't it? The family consent. I feel.
See, I don't agree with asking for permission because it's not the parent. I did ask because out of respect. I felt conflicted in the sense that it's the person's choice, isn't it? It's not their property to give away. It's an odd one. Because I did do that. But I don't know, where I stand in my head, because if he was to say no, I still would have proposed.
I just think you're at a risk of, I understand your point about the property thing, but the tradition of, I guess, asking permission and not risking souring that relationship, especially where Brian was where they both were in that part of their lives. They didn't really know him. If I were the parents of Gabby, I would feel a bit blighted by that. Is that a word?
To be fair, when I asked Colin, Sostad, I didn't see it as asking for permission. It was a nice chat.
Pre-warning.
Yeah, by the way, this was going to happen.
By the way, I'm marrying your daughter. I haven't asked you yet, but I'm marrying her.
Yeah.
Are you happy to be traditional and actually, the wife's family pay for it? Because I'm not very traditional, but I believe in that one tradition quite a lot, Colin. So, yeah, it's a weird one. I think it's to be fair though, to the older generation, I think it's probably, I can understand it more when it comes to maybe, I don't know if kids would now, not kids, that's so patronising, people now getting engaged, and if the parents were younger, maybe it wouldn't happen as much.
I think it's just like a courtesy and respect thing though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Either way, Brian sort of put two fingers up to everything we've just talked about. Hadn't asked Gabby's parents for permission, hadn't got a ring, which in the heat of the moment, I hear what Dan's saying. And the fireflies, I agree with Tom, it didn't fucking happen.
Bullshit.
And the only way, this is again where it's particularly nasty, the only way that Gabby's parents found out about the engagement was through a Facebook post by Brian's mother, who we've already said, there's Roberta, we'll talk about her later. But imagine finding that out about your oldest daughter. Yeah, not very nice. Joe Petito, Gabby's father, recalled the following.
I'm an old school person, and as an old school person, the one thing you do is you go up to the father of the person you want to marry and you ask him for their hand in marriage. That didn't happen. We found out on Facebook. All of us did.
Yeah, no, it's not the best way of finding out, is it?
No. At least give him a FaceTime.
Middle of nowhere, though, signal. Fireflies.
Tag him in it. Is this all right? Just tag Dad.
Is this all right?
Gabby, meanwhile, received a phone call from her mother querying the engagement, and she seemed fairly nonchalant about the fact that she did not yet have a ring to mark the proposal. She informed her mother when she asked, "Oh yeah, we'll get one eventually." And obviously this was regarding when she asked about the ring. And Brian appeared to be quite reserved around her parents and step-parents from this moment onwards, seeing and speaking with them on a far less frequent basis. Gabby took to Instagram on the 2nd of July 2020 to celebrate their engagement, posting a picture of a couple from their first date with the caption,
Here's a picture from our first date, because I have so much love for you. Sushi emoji. Brian asked me to marry him and I said yes. Brian, you make life feel unreal and every day is such a dream with you.
Not long after this, Brian posted the following on his now deleted Instagram account.
My biggest fear is that one day I'll wake up and it will all have been a dream, because that is what every second has felt like since the moment we found each other. Till death do us part, or until I wake up, I'm so happy the answer was yes. Love you, honey.
I hate honey spelled like that. Makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
Hunny. Like Honey Bunny, I guess. Gives me that vibe, which I don't particularly like.
It's not nice.
Over the next few months, despite their very affectionate, celebratory and adoring posts shared on the social media, some cracks started to appear in the foundation of Gabby's and Brian's seemingly picture-perfect relationship. In text messages to Rose, it was revealed that, on numerous occasions, anytime that Gabby attempted to go on nights out with her good friend, Brian would hide or even steal Gabby's ID in order to prevent her from leaving the house. He would also start to emotionally manipulate her and try to impose a form of curfew on her. Massive red flags immediately.
That's a big one. That's a very big one. Standing at the back of the beach with a book, fair enough. Hide in someone's ID to stop them from going out. Mad, get out of that relationship.
Curfew for control purposes. If you lived in a really rough part of town, you're like, I feel really uncomfortable because it's unsafe out there this time. I think we should both try and be back by this time. Maybe you can understand. And that's that push. But then when it's just like, no, you have to be out for this time, feels crazy to me.
Yeah.
Anytime that she was fortunate enough to be able to go out with her friends, Brian would regularly bombard her with text messages and phone calls, demanding that she reply to him almost instantly. On one occasion, Gabby didn't reply to him for several minutes, but Brian saw that she'd been queuing songs on their shared Spotify account, so he kicked off about it. That's
Crazy.
Yeah. He texted her the following: "Oh man, you took over the Spotify, but you can't text me back. I miss you so much, you hurt my feelings." Absolute wetty. On another occasion, Brian made the very bold decision to call Gabby's mother because he hadn't received a text back from her. And in this call to her mother, he brandished Gabby's friends as a dangerous crowd. Needless to say, Gabby was extremely unhappy about this happening. She demanded that Brian relax and explained that she didn't have service before going on to say, "Don't try to control me because it only makes me mad. I love you so much, but it's the way you speak to me that hurts me the most." Which, is, good on her for standing up to him for this, and she's not just accepting the behaviour, and she's still seeing her friends, and she's not being isolated to that extent. But yeah, she hasn't done anything for him to question her behaviour or not trust her at all. She moved, different states for him, and lives with his family. So it's kind of it's baffling.
Yeah, and then trying to gaslight her that her friends are dangerous. And I think he also spoke down on the place of work that they all worked at. Tried to convince her mother they're all dangerous and a bad crowd. I want her home, because he's then trying to look like the good guy. I want her to be safe. Meanwhile, he's completely limiting her social life, her limited already social life, which is, ridiculous.
On calling Gabby's mother, Brian hastily texted the following:
"Please, please, please forgive me for calling your mum, but I'm fucked in every aspect of my life now. I just wanted this week to go smoothly. I'm crying so hard in the dumb fucking bathroom typing this. I know you love me, and I'm so sorry I worry you'll leave. It's just that I couldn't have my life without you. I love you so much that every second I'm alone, I'm just stuck with the person I hate."
Gabby made the following note in her journal at a similar time: "Brian, you know how much I love you. Just please stop crying and stop calling me names. You in pain is killing me." During this particular period, Gabby appeared more and more withdrawn in front of her friends and seemed to be without her usual spark and energy that had become so acquainted with her. Her artwork of the time also became far more emotive and had darker tones than what was typical for Gabby. She made one particular piece where feet are seen walking across little shards of broken glass and blood is sprayed on the surrounding canvas. Her close friend Rose described her as being almost totally isolated and controlled by Brian. Regardless of this, she and Brian made plans to go on their next cross-country road trip, but this time they wanted to document their journey on a vlog. They wanted to complete the trip via a camper van after becoming engrossed in the van life movement, a trend/lifestyle where people travel and live out of vans all over the world, sharing their experiences on YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. To save for the trip, Gabby started working 50-hour weeks at a local Taco Bell, and that's where Brian basically looked down on that job role and people she kind of hung around with and co-workers and thought it was all very beneath her and beneath him, as well as a part-time nutritionist. And Brian took up work at a local organic juice bar.
Because that's far more classy.
It's organic.
I'd prefer a dirty old Taco Bell any day of the week.
Me too.
We'd match.
The dirtier the
Pretty
better.
sure.
I can imagine getting an organic juice bar down.
I love it
I could
too.
see that as well.
Yeah, I'm both in both sides really.
Yeah, I thought you would be, mate.
In December of 2020, the pair bought a camper van together, and Gabby was quick to draw up multiple different design plans for the conversion with flawless accuracy and attention to detail. The pair worked on the van in their spare time over the following 6 months, before they were ready to embark on their adventure of a lifetime. The pair would then quit their jobs moments before the trip was due to start, with Gabby launching the YouTube channel and blog Nomadic Static. It was her dream to make this her new lifestyle and income stream. On buying the van, Gabby said, "We bought a van, a 2012 Ford Transit Connect. We are going to have so much fun designing and building this plan together. Even though our plans got pushed back, like wedding/baby plans, I'm very happy."
A question I have here is, because so much of this trip is weighted around her dream job, beautiful trip across the country, at the moment there are some red flags in the relationship. The controlling element is really unhealthy. Trying to isolate her is really unhealthy. Gaslighting her, really unhealthy. At this point, we're not aware whether he's been violent or not towards her. Do you think still there's so much to gravitate towards in terms of what's about to happen that's positive, that she would perhaps consider staying in a relationship that wasn't completely positive, if I've worded that correctly?
I think it could even be the case of she's thinking of a happy time when they got engaged, they were traveling, they were in that scenario, in that environment, and the idea of being back in that kind of environment, traveling around America, what could be better? You know, that's her being with him 24/7, her not being with other friends, her not working at Taco Bell. Yeah, I think it's one of those. I mean, you know, it's sad, but you know, there's relationships who you try and bring a child into the earth to try and right the wrongs between the couple, and you know, it's thinking, oh, this change of environment is going to change all the DNA of the relationship. So yeah, I think I can understand it, and as well, you think, oh, I've moved all this far for him. How much of an upheaval it'll be to go back to this. I want to give it one last go. Maybe it was the final spin, you know, roll of the dice for her in her head, like see how this goes. But also being very excited. She was very excited by the idea of becoming a vlogger and all this stuff, and thinking with that lifestyle that they could both be happy, perhaps. But yeah, it's tricky.
I can also see there's probably a large element of Abby who just wanted to see the good in Brian, no matter what, no matter how dark it got. It was in her nature to be like, we're going to get through this or work past this, and it's going to be absolutely magical once we can get through these dark moments. So, yeah. On the 17th of June 2021, 15 days before the pair were due to start their trip, they spent a fortnight in Gabby's location of Blue Point, New York. They did this to attend her brother's graduation ceremony, but also to spend time with her family before embarking on their adventure. The Petito and Schmidt family recall Brian being far more quiet than usual and labelled him as preoccupied, but not acting out the ordinary. Gabby's mother, Nicole, recalls her last conversation with Gabby as the couple were leaving, where Nicole gave Gabby $200 for emergencies and her daughter unexpectedly broke into tears. Nicole asked why she was crying, and Gabby explained that she didn't know. The pair then hugged one another for what would sadly prove to be their final time. There's so many good memories over the years, but one thing I hold especially dear to me is the hug that we had in the driveway before she left for the trip. I gave her this hug, and I'll never forget how tight she hugged. It was just the best hug you could ever get from your kid. It was just a squeeze. And then I remember saying to Brian, "You take care of her, you keep her safe." And you looked at me, and you smiled, and you said, "I will."
On July 2nd, 2021, Brian and Gabby then got into their van, waved goodbye to Gabby's family, and set off on what was supposed to be the ultimate experience of a lifetime. Over the next 56 days, what was shared on the couple's various social media platforms painted a picture of an unbelievable, beautiful, exhilarating journey. However, what was happening off camera and behind the closed doors of their camper van was something of an entirely different nature. By this point, the engaged couple had been together for almost 2.5 years. To Gabby's closest friends in Florida, Brian had gradually manipulated and isolated her over a period of a little over 1.5 years that they had spent in the Sunshine State. Gabby's friends and family back home were not to know this, as they only ever saw or heard from her every so often. Gabby agreed to contact her parents every other day and assured them that regular posts would be made on their social media accounts. But both of these forms of communication would eventually run dry in the most suspicious and outrageous of manners. And it's now that we move over to the timeline of the murder of Gabby Petito.
July 2nd, 2021. The nomadic static van life officially begins. Gabby and Brian leave New York for their coast-to-coast road trip, planning on visiting many of the national parks in the western United States before heading inland. Gabby regularly updates her Instagram feed and story with beautiful scenic photos, making everything appear to be idyllic. On July 5th, 2021, 3 days later, the couple arrive and spend time in Monument Rocks in Kansas. This location is a series of large and unusual chalk formations, also referred to as chalk pyramids. And it basically makes the perfect backdrop for any traveler or really anyone with an Instagram account. It's very visually pleasing. Here, Gabby posts a series of photos amongst the rocks with a scorpion emoji as the caption, followed by the words, "There's no place like the tiny home we built." She then tags Brian's Instagram account and uses the hashtags vanlife and adventure blogger. At the time of recording, this particular post has garnered over 18,000 likes, but comments on the post have been limited to just 25, with many of those commenters noting that the caption itself was edited 4 weeks after the photo was posted. And this will very much be a theme over the coming days and weeks of their trip. There'd be photos updated, and either then, because it was like a carousel post with multiple photos, either individual photos will be removed, captions will be altered, tags will be added, and a lot of them are suggesting that this was done by Brian, later on in the timeline. July 8th, 2021. 3 days later, once again, the pair arrive at a new destination and Gabby documents their trip via her Instagram. This time they are in the city of Colorado Springs in Colorado. Here, Gabby uploads photos of herself taken in front of some floral graffiti, as well as one of her holding a small flower pot. The caption is a snail emoji and a smiley face. On July 10th, 2021, 8 days into their trip, the couple spend time at the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve in Colorado. One photo is uploaded of Gabby on the dunes, and this time it's done with an unusually lengthy caption describing her love for van life and their experiences so far. It also notes their troubles to get a parking permit and the beauty of the dunes. Again, this is one of those posts where there's been loads of likes, thousands of likes, but limited comments. And once again, the limited people able to comment on the post once again point out that the caption was edited several weeks after the photo itself was posted, going from just a few emojis and short sentences to full-blown paragraphs. On top of this, people have speculated that the initial captions may have shown signs or hints that she wasn't having the best time, or potential signs of trouble. Once again, Brian's account is tagged at the end of the paragraph with the usual hashtags. Another thing I noticed as well is, although his account, which is now deleted, has been tagged in all of these photos, in the early part of the trip, he's not in any of the photos with her. It's only until the last few days where photos are uploaded that he starts to appear. And I can completely, going off of what his text messages were like earlier and him flipping out about Spotify, I can see him being very jealous of her just posting photos of herself and any attention that she might have received from other men. I can imagine him being a really difficult person to be okay with that.
Yeah. From the documentary, I got the impression that he wasn't overly fond of being in front of the camera.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, he seemed very uncomfortable in front of the camera. But yeah, because it was very much the idea that they're doing it together though. So yeah, I see your point. His energy is just very, very weird to read. And maybe, he was taking the pictures. But yeah, it's
he doesn't even strike me as the type that would want to go on a cross-country road trip. Not that there is a set type, but she seems much more bohemian and outgoing and adventurous. He doesn't strike me as any of those things, apart from his little shark tooth necklace.
He liked trekking and as a kid, didn't he, and camping and things like that, so quite outdoorsy. So yeah, I think he probably wouldn't have been keen on the idea of vlogging it all. He didn't seem like that kind of guy, but the actual doing it, probably was within his wheelhouse. But yeah, he didn't seem comfortable with the whole filming and documenting everything. And I think if you're in a slightly fractious relationship, it's quite an odd thing to document and pretend to be happy. On that documentary, shows lots of times of them redoing takes of things, and it just being very not natural at all.
So later that day, another post was uploaded at the same location, 7 photos and 1 video of Gabby on the dunes with a sandboard. The caption reads, "Bikini Bottom isn't the only place there's sandy cheeks. Cactus emoji, sunshine emoji." Reason why we're listing all these emojis is to show that there were very little captions made, which are believed to have been genuinely by Gabby. And she did this one in reference to the video is her sandboarding and then falling over backwards on the dunes. Once again, the post shows that it was edited some weeks after its initial upload. The following day, Gabby posted her last photo from Colorado before the pair headed towards Utah. Again, it was a photo of Gabby on the dunes, and once again, it was edited 5 weeks after being uploaded.
Over the next 5 weeks, Gabby and Brian spent time in Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon National Park, Mystic Hot Springs, Canyonlands National Park, Cedar Breaks National Monument, and Arches National Park, all in the state of Utah. Quite the list. Mystic Hot Springs.
It looks bloody beautiful. I've never been to Utah. It comes up in a lot of cases, that area, that state, and it looks fabulous. The nice parts.
Yeah, that coming up in our podcast probably isn't a good sign.
Not yet.
Yes, multiple scenic Instagram posts are uploaded on each location. Almost all of them are edited weeks after being posted. Many of them tag Brian in the caption, and on the 19th of July 2021, unless others were deleted, Brian makes his first appearance in a post, standing next to Gabby in the Narrows in Zion National Park. On the 22nd of July, Brian appears once again, standing next to Gabby in Bryce Canyon, which was later also edited, reads,
Every night we have camped so far inside any national park, it's rained. Rain sounds like a negative thing when camping, but after coming back from a strenuous long hike in the sun with no shade for miles, it's nice to lay listening to the cold rain hit your tent and fight Brian for the blanket.
I do like it, the sound of rain on the tent.
I love it.
Love that.
It's the smugness, isn't it? The smugness of knowing you're out of the wet. That's what I like. But it's also calming. Yeah, calming.
If you want another cool fact about me,
yes, please.
it's not a bad one.
Okay.
But
When has there been a bad one?
we can't no longer sleep without rain sounds. We're going to bed.
Oh.
Have you got a little white noise machine?
We ask Alexa to play rain sounds and thunderstorms. Something about
Alexa,
sleeping in just utter silence is uncomfortable now for us.
Make it rain, Alexa.
Yeah.
Audiobooks for me, mate. But they do enter my dreams.
Throughout the night?
Yeah. Put an audiobook on Audible, put 8-hour timer on it.
Oh, shit. Wow. That is interesting.
But listen to Alan Carr's audiobook, and he was in my dream. Alan Carr, knocking about.
Wow.
No way.
Yeah. We often listen to Alan Partridge.
That's a great one.
So the cat, what should we put on? Let's listen to Alan. I'm like, okay, we'll put that on.
But surely you have to turn that off at some point during the night.
No, you should put a timer on it. When you turn your
worse,
rain
Dan.
No, that's the thing. The rain is throughout the whole night until we wake up.
Oh, so it's still raining in the morning.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I need to really get YouTube Premium because I've got Spotify Premium, but I barely use it. So I just thinking about doing the sub. But I just put crime documentaries on, or weird mysteries, unsolved disappearances, things like that, and fall asleep to that. And sometimes I have bad dreams.
Can imagine.
It doesn't comfort me when I'm
Adverts
in bed.
always wake me up as well because they're so much louder than the content.
Why don't you just listen
So
to
loud.
podcasts about these topics?
I don't know. I need the visuals, even though my eyes are closed.
The best thing I ever did was taking the TV out of the bedroom.
Oh,
My sleep became so much better. So much better.
Sleep hygiene is really important, everybody.
Bosh.
Bosh.
But anyway, thank you for that, Dan.
All right.
Wayne Rooney, the footballer, would often have a hairdryer on all night, and it caused a couple of fires occasionally because he liked the constant noise, but a hairdryer on.
Oh, that's a scary noise
Fucking hell.
to find peace in.
Well, listening about rapists and murderers at night is probably...
Yeah, I can't really talk.
Surely just get a loop of an audio of a hairdryer rather than actually a physical hairdryer in the room.
Different times.
I'll let Rooney know.
Different times. You can still play things on the fucking... Well, maybe, tapes and all that jazz.
The next posts, all of which are edited after being posted, contain multiple paragraphs worth of captions and tag Brian's account multiple times. Brian also appears visually in the posts on a far more regular basis. Some users in the limited comment section speculate that Gabby's eye appears to be swollen in some of the photos. Some comment that the photos appear to have been edited differently with different lighting and filters, whilst others have speculated that Brian, as Ben mentioned earlier, would have been very jealous and thrown a tantrum not being included within the photos. In one post dated July 30th, Brian is tagged twice in a lengthy caption. In the post on August 12th, Brian is tagged 3 times in a 2-paragraph caption, and in a post later the same day, he's tagged 4 times in a 4-paragraph caption. Yeah, it's a bit weird. August 12 is a very relevant date in this particular case, and what happens next may explain why Brian was either controlling the account himself or demanding to be in the captions repeatedly.
August 12th, 2021. The city of Moab, Utah, approximately 4:30 p.m. The following phone call is made to 911 to report a domestic dispute.
And we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute. Florida with a white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman,
Where's it at?
5'6", beard. They just drove off. They're going down Main Street. They made a right onto Main Street from Moonflower.
Or what were they doing?
Cooperative, but what'd you say?
What were they doing?
We drove by, and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Okay, you said it's a white van?
White van. I can give you the license plate if you give me 1 sec. I took a picture of it.
What kind of white van? Like a big one?
It was a smaller van with the license plate of, it was white, Florida license plate QFT G03. The make was a Ford, model was Transit, black ladder on the passenger side.
Black ladder, passenger side.
White Ford Transit.
This was after the individual observed the couple fighting outside of a supermarket. A witness reported observing a man strike a woman, after which both individuals ran along the sidewalk. Subsequently, the man assaulted the woman once more before they left together in a hurry in their vehicle. A different witness recounted the events slightly differently to law enforcement, stating that it appeared as though Gabby and Brian were engaged in a heated conversation that seemed aggressive, with Gabby reportedly punching him in the arm. The witness then observed that Brian appeared to be attempting to leave Gabby behind while trying to take her phone with him. Prior to them leaving together, Gabby apparently entered the driver's seat, shifted to the passenger seat to allow him to drive, and loudly questioned him, "Why do you have to be so mean?" Brian and Gabby are immediately pursued by Moab police and US Park Rangers, with an officer following their van noting that the driver was obscure driving and possibly intoxicated, and doing 45 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. Brian, who was driving, then hits the curb and is subsequently pulled over by the police. This is where the case starts to become one of the most infamously frustrating and heartbreaking true crime cases in recent history.
At 4:46 p.m, after being pulled over, police body cam footage shows that Gabby is crying and potentially on the verge of some sort of panic attack. She is struggling to speak and her breathing is erratic. Brian, who remains completely calm, stares at the officer and apologizes for clipping the curb and driving over the speed limit. They explain to the officer that they have had a long morning, that they have been fighting, and that they have experienced some personal issues. Police and park rangers make the decision to separate the pair, both of whom have visible injuries to the face, shoulders, and arms. They then are separated and taken to be interviewed separately. A park ranger waits with Brian whilst the Moab police officer takes Gabby to his vehicle. So what we're going to do is play this clip for you now, starting with the questions asked to Gabby. Very much consider this a warning that some people will find this clip incredibly distressing if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, "I'm sorry that I'm so mean," because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just I guess my vibe is like I hear him be like in a bad mood. I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my job.
Cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I just have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed. And he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know, he's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah.
The officer then sits Gabby in the back of his car before proceeding to interview Brian, who is back over by the van. And again, there's a huge contrast in his body language speech, attitude towards these questions compared to Gabby's?
I didn't get overtly physical. I was just trying to keep her away and not get hit. And then I got really loud, and that's probably drew everyone's attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a...
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone? So you pushed her and she hit you?
She was... it wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already... She was already swinging, and I was... Yeah. A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings.
Yeah, you got 3 scratches on your neck. You got 1 on your left side of your nose. You got 1 on your face here, and you've got 4 bleeding.
I was just tired.
So it looks like 2 hands coming in. Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
Okay.
Yeah,
A little bit of nails. I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about fingernails.
Is it bruised or tender or anything like that?
No. Okay. I'm fine, and I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I had to get so public. I was just trying to be loud to get some distance. I just try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching. I'll say crisscross applesauce, but can I just sit in the shade because I'm bald? It's okay. I'll give you some shade. Sound good?
So yeah, those are the 2 clips. Obviously, loads to unpack here. One of the first things I noticed, apart from how distressing the entire situation is that the park ranger who is there is very involved, and he's very kind of much on Brian's side from the start. He's imitating a scratching attack almost in a cartoon-like manner. He quickly points to Brian's multiple wounds, even though Gabby also has multiple wounds. And very much throughout the whole thing, I find the park ranger to be making light of what is a very serious situation. There's also, just to highlight that, a screenshot from both Brian and Gabby's body cam footage that shows the complete contrast in their appearance. Brian makes a joke that she's crazy, which the officers giggle at. It's just, obviously infuriating footage. And to think that Gabby's family then had to see that, all of her friends had to see that. Brian's parents, fuck them, but they had to see it as well. It's just so weird that they immediately side with him. I can only imagine it's because he's got slightly more significant cut marks to his face, and she is very emotional at that point, which paints her as, she admits to hitting him quite quickly, doesn't she?
So the thing is, what's difficult is because obviously she is very emotional and he is not, which I can see that transient response from the police is to favour the more calm and level-headed person in that scenario, but that in itself is just removing impartiality completely. Just because the young woman is distressed or emotional and can't really get her words out or whatever, but the other guy can, doesn't really mean that it should be favoured in one way. It's obviously a domestic dispute that needs to be resolved, and I think it was, especially in this situation here, it was resolved in completely the wrong way in terms of how they split up the 2. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
So yeah, it's a series of incredibly uncomfortable viewing. The officer continues to kind of try and relate to both of them that his wife has anxiety attacks, and when she gets like this, just go and have a long shower, it'll be fine. Yeah, it's just it's not a nice series of events. And we've gone through, obviously, Tom mentioned all the different Instagram posts that were made shortly after this, where there are paragraphs of captions, and Brian is tagged like 7 times throughout those 2 posts. And you can understand that now, as the police make the decision they make, why Gabby may have felt guilty or to make these posts, or why he was potentially manipulating her to make these posts. Either way, we'll go through now to explain what the police decided to do based on what they have witnessed. In an official report, one of the officers at the scene wrote the following.
At no point in my investigation did Gabrielle stop crying, breathing heavily, or compose a sentence without needing to wipe away tears, wipe her nose, or rub her knees with her hands. The male tried to create distance by telling Gabby to take a walk to calm down. She did not want to be separated from the male and began slapping him. He grabbed her face and pushed her back as she pressed upon him and the van.
Shockingly, perhaps due to there being slightly more visible injuries to Brian, police described Gabby as the primary aggressor. And, as neither wished to press charges, they advised the couple to separate overnight for at least the next 24 hours. And in doing this, they arranged for free accommodation for Brian as a, quote, domestic abuse survivor at the Bowen Motel in Moab. They advised that Gabby remained in the van and that the pair said their goodnights and goodbyes. The Moab City Police Department subsequently, in the weeks and months that would follow, conducted an investigation to determine if its officers managed the case in alignment with departmental policies. During this investigation, the chief of police of Moab took an abrupt leave of absence. Poignant bodycam footage shows 2 Moab officers at the scene having the following exchange when discussing potential action to be taken against the couple.
How far do you want to go with this? Too many times, women who are at risk want to go back to their abusers, and they end up getting worse and worse treatment, and then end up getting killed. In no way, shape or form can I perceive a situation where he was going to be a battered man. Another option is to not charge and separate them for the night. If they find themselves together again, what is it to you?
So yeah, despite that conversation, they make the decision, because they could have, if either Gabby or Brian at that point wanted to press charges, then they could have actually launched a full investigation into the domestic assault allegations. They decide to separate them. They take Brian to a local hotel which provides free accommodation to domestic abuse survivors, and they tell Gabby to get on her way in the van. Despite being separated by law enforcement, Gabby and Brian met up later that night, and apparently it's believed that they made up. Over the next few days, the pair resumed their road trip and travelled from Moab to Salt Lake City. Uploads to social media, unless they were deleted, would start to appear far less frequently, and only 2 additional posts would be made on Gabby's account over the next 14 days.
August 17th, Brian flew back home to Florida, leaving Gabby on her own for 7 days. According to a solicitor of the Laundrie family, Brian took this flight in order to obtain some personal items and empty out a storage locker he was keeping so he could save some money before returning to Gabby the following week. August 19th, a week after the encounter with the police, Gabby posts her first and only YouTube video on her van life vlog channel, Nomadic Static, which documented the progression of the road trip so far. This channel was intended to be her dream job and launch her new lifestyle as she and Brian continued to explore different parts of the country together. This video would have less than 500 views prior to Gabby going missing, but at the time of recording has risen to almost 12 million views. August 22nd, Gabby contacts her former boyfriend, Jackson Huffam, and hints at an argument/disagreement with Brian. She apparently implies her desire to end the relationship and return home, but Jackson thinks Gabby is uncertain about exactly how to do so. A week later, Gabby reaches out to Jackson one more time through Snapchat while in a restaurant in Wyoming, expressing that she is thinking about him. She subsequently attempts to call him, but he's at work and he cannot take the call. August 25th. 2 days after Brian rejoined her in the van, Gabby uploads her final post to Instagram. Several photos of herself smiling in front of a large butterfly mural outside a restaurant in the city of Ogden, Utah. This day also marks the last time Gabby would ever speak to her mother, Nicole, whom she informed that the pair were going to travel to Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. The last known footage of Gabby alive was captured 2 days later as she and Brian were filmed by CCTV of a Whole Foods in Jackson, Wyoming. The pair spent 16 minutes at the Whole Foods before spending an additional 20 minutes sitting in their parked van in the car park. The pair then drove off and joined Highway 89, heading towards Bridger Teton National Forest campsite at 2:56 p.m.
From this CCTV thing as well, and I know the Netflix documentary they add sound effects to it as well, but one thing I noticed is they park up and they're sat in the parked van for a couple of minutes and they get out and he proper slams the door. He also enters the Whole Foods with like a cap and sunglasses on, which straight away to me I was like, why? I know people do that, but I didn't know if at this point he already has a plan in mind and he's covering his identity. But I mean, he knows cameras will see the van, the number plates. Gabby's completely visible, so maybe that's just his fit, you know.
What I found really jarring about that CCTV is obviously, like you say, Ben, the slam that comes from the car as they're leaving. But then there's another bit of footage when they're inside the store, right?
Yeah,
the supermarket.
Arms folded
But what I see in that is like they're still choosing their bits for dinner and, you know, and going about their day, I suppose, quite normally. And to me, when I watched that, I just thought it shows how normal, I guess, Brian's kind of behaviour can be. And then it's just they're eager to move on and crack on, and as if nothing's wrong, which I found quite shocking to see.
Yeah, they're both very adept by this point at switching on the normal behaviour, and even like the distance between them when they're walking into the shop, it's like you could tell there's been a bit of a tiff before they went in there. And yes, in there you wouldn't have any idea.
Yeah, you wouldn't, yeah. August 27th, 2021. 2 days later, Gabby and Brian were seen at Mary Piglet's Tex-Mex restaurant in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, by a witness who claimed that Brian was acting aggressively and complaining about money to the restaurant manager, waitresses and hostesses. The same witness also claimed to have seen Gabby leave and return to the restaurant, crying both times, before apologising for Brian's behaviour. Mary Piglet's later confirmed that the couple were in their restaurant between 1 and 2 p.m. via their Instagram.
One thing I'll say here is, and again, this is going off of that documentary, and this is the only thing I'll probably say to kind of contradict that situation, is that there were text messages showing that Gabby had gone to the bathroom because something they ate at Mary Piglet's didn't agree with her. From the bathroom, she'd text him to say, we're not paying for that. That chicken made me feel sick. So although this woman has seen him kicking off and talking about money to the manager and all that, it seems like maybe he's doing that upon instruction, perhaps, based on the text message. But also she's then come in to apologise because he's probably gone a bit too aggressive to try and say, look, you've made my girlfriend sick. We're not paying for that chicken. But still, he's snapped in public again.
Later that day, a text message was sent from Gabby's phone to her mother, referring to her grandfather by his first name as Stan. This was something that Gabby would never do, and this was the first name that Brian was aware of. The only text message that followed came 3 days later, which simply stated, no service in Yosemite. During this period, Brian was spotted multiple times in his own in the van, driving slowly and behaving erratically by several different witnesses in Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area, Coulter Bay Village, and Jackson Lake Dam. Brian was also picked up when hitchhiking on at least 2 separate occasions. The people that gave him rides explained that he did not appear to be that dirty for someone who claimed to have been camping for several days, and also got very antsy about being dropped off outside the campground, rather than taken into it. He also offered one person $200 for a 30-minute journey. He was regularly travelling between Spread Creek and Jackson Lake Dam, often close to sunset.
So yeah, this is believed to have been the night that Brian murdered Gabby. He was seen hiking between these different locations, which is quite a long hike, and the van was also parked up on a particular location on Spread Creek. All of the people that picked him up and offered him lifts explained that he was very frantic, not wishing to talk too much, but also explained that he needed to get back to the van because that's where his fiancé was, and she was making videos. She was a travel vlogger, but anytime they were going to get to a point where they'd be relatively close to the van, that's when he became very antsy, as Dan said. And it's believed at this point, he's trying to now, using Gabby's phone and his phone, he's trying to basically spread the GPS location as well as any possible people seeing him, give them a different story, so he's also got an alibi.
I read that somewhere, a conspiracy theory though around this.
Oh,
here we go.
Because it was obviously, people have really kind of gripped on the idea that she would never call her grandfather Stan, because it's, that's a weird thing to call your grandparent by the first name, and that in fact the reason why that she did call him Stan was essentially stands for send the authorities now, which feels a bit of a reach.
Is that a common thing?
That's what I don't know, Dan. That's what I don't know. I'm going to see if it is. Is Stan used as an emergency?
If that's a thing, that'd be very interesting. But obviously, if someone sent me the word Stan...
Stan is widely said to be an acronym for send the authorities now.
Wow.
Rating, false.
Oh.
What? So why are you giving me that? So, yeah.
Well, the reason why I think it happened, the reason why she was texting, or Brian was texting that, is because at this point everyone's trying to call Gabby. They haven't heard from her in a few days, and one of the people trying to call her was her granddad. She couldn't answer the call. Brian wouldn't answer the call, wanted to then throw people off the scent by saying, tell Stan he hasn't got any signal.
And also willing to spend $200 for a 30-minute journey where he's not happy to spend anything in Mary Piglet's.
Yeah, so this particular night, apparently after they've been in the Whole Foods, there's been another big argument. There are text messages between Gabby and her mum to suggest that Gabby was going to go solo, and talked about buying the van from Brian, and that Brian was going to go and camp in the woods. She would stay in the van. So at this point, which is a terrifying thought as well, she's parked up alone in the van. He probably knows how to get in the van. or he might have multiple keys. He's convinced her he's in the woods, and then it's one of the most widely believed things is that he's then waited until the middle of the night, come back to the van, and that's where he's then taken Gabby's life.
I was going to talk about how, like, the whole Stan thing I found, again, quite arrogant. Because to me, it just shows that he just doesn't know, like, in-depth relationships that Gabby had with her family. Because I would know what Soph would call...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it shows another level of arrogance and just not wanting to understand, or, yeah.
August 29th, another 2 days passes by, and according to phone records, Brian calls his parents. First, he spoke with his mother for 55 minutes, and it's claimed that towards the end of their conversation, his mood and tone completely changed. Not long after this, Brian's father called him back, to which Brian simply said, "Gabby's gone," and that he may need a lawyer. Which, that within itself is, His family immediately contacted a lawyer after this call. The following day, Brian starts his journey back to Florida, alone, without Gabby, sending several staged texts from her phone to himself, holding a phone in each hand as he composed conversations. He makes the decision to use Gabby's debit card to purchase fuel and then transfer $700 from her account to his own, including a memo that stated, "Goodbye, Brian, I'll never ask you for anything again." So the implication there was that it was going to appear as if she's buying the van off of him, which would make sense if the van wasn't being used to be being driven back in.
Yeah.
Again, it just feels like no thought, or it's kind of really gone from that. Very odd.
Yeah, this part is only going to infuriate people further. It did, especially so with myself. The 55-minute call with the mother, so again, it's not clear exactly what was said during that call. It's believed that maybe the admittance happened there. Either way, the Brian's parents, the Laundries, sent $25,000 to a lawyer in Wyoming, but claimed they didn't know where Gabby was. And as rightfully pointed out by Gabby's father, Joe, you don't send $25,000 to a lawyer unless you're wanting someone to represent you for the most serious of charges.
Yeah. 100%. So after Brian continues his journey over 2,000 miles, September 1st, Brian arrived at his parents' house in Northport, Florida, by himself in the couple's camper van. What happens over the next 4 days is unclear, but he remains at the home for the majority of the time. On the 6th and 7th of September, he and his parents abruptly went camping in western Florida. Over the next week and a half, Gabby's parents, friends and other family members would text and call Gabby repeatedly, with no answer or response. September 10th, Gabby's mother sends a text message to Roberta Laundrie, Brian's mother, but does not receive a reply. When she sends a follow-up message, it appears green, indicating that Roberta may have either blocked her or switched off her phone. Gabby's father, Joe, then attempts to contact the Laundrie family through the text, but also receives no response. In the meantime, Gabby's family and friends start sharing posts on Facebook regarding her disappearance.
And so this very quickly now starts spreading, and it will only start spreading more once it comes to light how the Laundries respond to the situation. But the news starts spreading in the kind of camper nomad community, and that word spreads very quickly. They all look out for one another. There's different, forums and message boards and things like that. They then start going through their own footage now to look for any evidence, if they're in the area, where they might potentially notice the van that Gabby was in. And one particular vlogging couple do notice that they drove past the van on one particular day and immediately upload that footage to YouTube.
The following day, Gabby's family contacts the US Park Police and the Northport Police in Florida, where the Laundrie family lives. Once the concern about Gabby's whereabouts is raised, in response, local law enforcement officers go to the Laundrie family home to ask about Gabby's location. Brian's parents boldly assert that their son is at home, but decline to provide any further information. They then advise the authorities to communicate with their attorney, who, by this point, they had already hired.
Northport Police Department. Yes. How you doing, sir? I apologize for bothering you. I have the detective on the phone. I'm not talking to anybody right now. You don't want to talk to us? No. Okay, she's on the phone. You don't want to talk to her now? No. Okay, when was the last time that you saw Brian and Gabriel?
Well, Brian is here.
Brian is here?
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying.
So yeah, a very bizarre exchange goes on to happen. As we kind of mentioned, the fact that Gabby's gone missing, the only person she's with is back home with his family without Gabby, and the van is there, and he's refusing to speak to them. It's like, you know, it's very peculiar behaviour, and it's, I mean, what boils my blood as well is Roberta, you know, she's a mother as well, and if it was to happen to her boy, how she would be reacting at this point, and not giving the respect to the family, or giving any kind of reply or response, and just flat out ignoring it, knowing that they must be absolutely, the world is falling down around them, is absolutely evil.
Yeah, I mean, and they have a daughter of their own as well, an older daughter. Brian has an older sister, so they could certainly put themselves in the Petito family's shoes. But the fact that Brian is there, and that's all they're going to say, but they've also coupled that with the fact they've sent 25 grand to a lawyer. It's just, and I've honestly, I was going to say this at the end of the episode, but you know how we cover the most despicable cases ever, and there still are, in some communities, little fanboys, followers of certain despicable people. I thought, there's no way there could be one for Brian Laundrie. And there is. There are Reddit threads that basically say what the family did here is perfectly sound, and that they should have lawyered up.
Fuck off.
Because of the situation that it was in, and that was their best option for any kind of defense, was to lawyer up, and that they were completely within their rights to do so. There are people that still believe Brian to be innocent. There are people that believe actually it was a conspiracy and it was a suicide. There are people that believe in Brian's theory, which we're going to go on to. It's so fucking infuriating.
I think the lawyering up thing, obviously they have the right to do that, but I think, and if it's your son, you're gonna, even if he's done this thing, you're gonna want to do that, I'm sure. But it's the arrogance and complete lack of respect I find here, like the incredibly infuriating, and the fact just like shutting out, and the police not having more power there, which is not the police's fault, but I find that, you know, we can see the fans in the front garden, we can see this is here, you see, you know, your son's here. Them go, no, it's like, well, they should have the power to be able to basically go in there and take him to prison and speak to him and actually question him.
And for me, it's kind of like you touched on it. It's the family dynamic that I think is just pure evil. Like I get the whole lawyering thing, because even if you're innocent, it's good to have a professional on your side. But from that family standpoint, knowing quite clearly what's happened, there's, you know, if I had a son or daughter that did something like that, I wouldn't protect them if I knew black and white what had happened. And to there, it seems like, nope, Brian's my son. I'm going to protect them no matter what. Everybody else stay out of this. And I just find that beyond evil.
As we said, the dynamic between Roberta and him was already quite odd and weird, and it feels like this is her moment to be this kind of hero and stand up and stand by him and all this stuff, and it's just very, very weird. I mean, we don't know exactly what Brian said in the phone call, and obviously it's 55 minutes, and it sounds like he did obviously give away a fair bit of what happened if the fact that lawyers were called. But yeah, it's a very infuriating watch seeing how the police body cams in this part. As a result of this bizarre exchange, Gabby is immediately reported missing by her mother 17 days after the pair last spoke on the phone. The Laundrie family, meanwhile, refused to speak to anybody about the case and refused to allow their son to leave the family home. Angry crowds began to flock around the property as word of Gabby's situation went viral and started trending across Twitter, YouTube, Reddit and Instagram. And now the Laundrie family are airing their dirty laundry in the front garden.
Terrific.
Meanwhile, Gabby's stepfather, Jim, travels to Wyoming, where Gabby was last seen, to assist with the on-ground search. One thing I want to say is the stepfathers and stepmother, the stepfather and the stepmother for Gabby, just seem amazing people, and they see how much that they were so emotional in the documentary, and obviously they definitely saw her as, you know, their own child, and rightfully so. But there's so much love between the family, and the dynamic of the family seems great. There was there's no weird animosity between the two couples, and yeah, they both were so emotional talking about it and discussing it, and yeah, really kind of struck the heartstrings there watching that. From this moment onwards, local law enforcement monitored the Laundrie residence 24/7, where they observed who they believed to be Brian allegedly departing the property on September 13th. 2 days later, they witnessed his vehicle returning. Authorities suspected that the individual who got out of the car and entered the house was also Brian. However, they were wrong, and this was in fact his mother. The following day, Northport Police Chief Todd Garrison informed the media at a local press conference, "All I'm going to say is we know where Brian Laundrie is at." Yeah, there was a weird text exchange between Roberta and the daughter about that, saying how Brian would be losing his mind if he knew that his figure was compared to his mother. Brian insisted to get interviewed and doorstepped by the press, and they came out and they said everything. They said that we don't know anything about it. We're not actually getting any replies from my parents either. But then that text exchange happened, so whether or not that was completely true. Yeah.
The fact is that as well, they're saying all I'm going to say is we know where Brian Laundrie is. They didn't. They've made a mistake. They've let him leave the house, and he's now, well, we'll talk about it, but it's crazy that they had, surrounding surveillance on the house, and he got out and they didn't follow. September 17th, 2021. Just when you thought this case couldn't get any more frustrating or abnormal, Brian Laundrie was reported missing by his parents, who made the bold and quite shocking claim that they had not seen their son for 4 days. At this point, following the acquisition of search warrants, law enforcement officials had already confiscated the Ford Transit Connect. I believe they did that on the 11th of September, as well as an external hard drive belonging to Brian and the Laundrie family's Mustang. Later that day, authorities received a report indicating unusual activity at the Laundrie family home. Brian's parents informed them that he is not present and that he had told them that he was going for a hike in the nearby Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. Authorities asked the public for assistance in tracking down Gabby, and they received thousands of tips that continue to grow. There would also be, upon searching the Laundrie family home, there would be the revelation of the infamous burn after reading letter written by Brian's mother, which says the following: "I just want you to remember I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can stop me loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us. No matter what we do or where we go or what we say, we will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing, it's not words, it is actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words." She then goes on to add a section of a verse from the Bible, as well as a quote, but she titled it "Burn After Reading."
What a weird fucking letter.
Yeah. Can you imagine being Gabby's family and then hearing about this?
Yeah. Well, I hate your fucking guts, Roberta.
Yeah.
Dan thinks you're oddly attractive.
Fuck off.
I hate you guys.
The top comment on this post as well, where I've just read the burn after reading letter, says, "You can love someone unconditionally and still hold them accountable. In fact, you should."
Hear, hear.
Amen.
Hear ye, hear ye.
September 19th, 2021. Tragically, human remains that correspond with the description of 22-year-old Gabby Petito were discovered at the Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area in Wyoming, located not far from the site where the Ford Transit Connect had been seen in footage that had basically been reviewed and provided by other van life couples. Her identity was verified, and an autopsy revealed that the cause of death was homicide due to blunt force injuries to the head and neck, along with manual strangulation, which is believed to have taken place between 3 to 4 weeks prior to the discovery of the body. Which again, it kind of puts it back to August 27th, August 28th, August 29th. And again, this all came about, this location came about, they were searching all different parts of the country, and in terms of where Gabby's phone was last recorded, it was like a 20,000 mile square area that they were searching. This other van life couple, which I'll get the name of them, I'm so sorry I don't have it to hand, they basically uploaded footage which showed the precise location of them driving past the van, and without them this would have taken so much longer to locate. A huge national manhunt was launched for 23-year-old Brian Laundrie. A federal arrest warrant was also issued for him. Amongst the hundreds of thousands of people speculating online about the case and the many thousands of people searching the country coast to coast, Dog the Bounty Hunter also joined the search for Brian, and basically filming content about basically trying to track him down. And all I remember about that was he just said, if we get the scent, it's over. It's over.
This is after he was essentially cancelled, really, wasn't it, for being racist?
Yeah.
That takes the shine off.
Trying to make a bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
Win some people over. On the 5th of October, Brian's older sister Cassie and her husband, who were, as Tom said, the only family members willing to talk to the press and general public about the events as they unfolded, actively encouraged Brian to turn himself in. But there would still be no sign of Brian, with speculation reaching intense new levels for another 15 days.
October 20th, 2021. Great date.
Happy birthday, mate.
Myakahatchee Creek Environmental Park, which had been the focus of the authorities' initial search for Brian, is open to the public after being shut for several days due to flooding. On that particular day, the Laundrie family came early to carry out their own independent search efforts. They arrive at 7 a.m. and, just an hour later, Brian's father discovers his son's waterproof bag. 45 minutes after that, his decomposed remains are located. The police were eventually able to conclude, after extensive forensic testing due to the condition of the remains, that he had died by suicide due to a gunshot wound to the head.
One thing to mention at the time of the search was because the weather was absolutely terrible, wasn't it? And it was so flooded, and it was like, obviously that made it so much harder for the dogs and people searching that space. They actually were, going up, walking around, searching tirelessly with water up to the knees or the waist. It was absolutely.
And the search dogs were being attacked by alligators.
Yes, yeah. It was absolutely it was incredibly difficult circumstances to search. Yeah, the parents knew the trails that he would often go on, and they knew which way he would often go. So they went by themselves and quickly found, his backpack or some material that was definitely his. And then not far from there, they were able to find him. I don't believe that they knew that was going to be what they were to find. I think they probably were hopeful they'd find him there and, be able to talk him down, essentially. But, obviously in this, Brian, what he did was absolutely evil and reprehensible, and his parents have acted in such a disgusting manner, and, I can completely understand. And I, think that they could have behaved in a lot better way and made this a lot easier, as easier as it could be for the families. But, they've gone on to find their son in that state, which obviously would be heartbreaking for them as well. And it just goes on to show the ripple effect from the crime. Do
you know what I watched recently? I think everyone's watched it now. Adolescence on Netflix, which is an amazing watch, and that's the first time that I've really felt genuine sympathy and even considered what the families of perpetrators have to go through. And it's a heartbreak. It's some of the final episode is such an uncomfortable hour. But for these parents who have interfered, and not necessarily interfered, but they've been reluctant to provide any kind of support or help. Obviously in Florida, they were from New York originally, but in Florida the death penalty is active, so maybe they were again lawyering up to try and protect their son. But it's the fact, again, the amount that they went out their way to make it, the way I feel, they make it difficult for the Petito family and villainize themselves to a whole nation, to the whole world. I find it so hard to have sympathy for them.
Yeah. For me, Brian, rotten hell.
Oh, yeah.
January 21st, 2022. The FBI revealed that Brian Laundrie's notebook, which was found near his remains, contained an entry in which he admitted to killing Gabby and deceiving people that she was still alive via text messages from her phone. He was officially blamed for Gabby's death by authorities, and the investigation was closed. 6 months later, the Laundrie family solicitors agreed for the full notebook to be released. In the notebook, Brian claims that he killed Gabby after she had fallen and injured herself. Fucking cunt.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, "I ended her life. I thought it was merciful. That is what she wanted. But now I see all the mistakes I made. I'm ending my life not because of a fear of punishment, but rather because I can't stand to live another day without her." Many leading experts and the majority of the public have dismissed this.
Yeah, so basically he claimed that all he could hear was her fall into a body of water and badly hurt herself, and she was freezing cold, in agony, and he made the bold claim that she basically begged him to mercifully, end her life. The full notebook, I've got the FBI PDF for it, so I'll pop that in our Facebook group. But he goes, he's on some very big tangents there. Most of it is him saying goodbye to his family and telling people not to blame his parents. They were protecting their son, apologizing to Gabby's family to an extent, but saying he also had thought about just going to their house so that Gabby's father and Gabby's brother could essentially kill him with their hands. Yeah, he writes a lot of things about basically not killing her other than to try and end her pain, whereas actually the post-mortem would reveal that very different series of events had happened, completely disproving his theory. It's a very upsetting, harrowing case, and for it to have unraveled in real time, somewhat recently, it's really disturbing. Since the timeline, a $3 million wrongful death claim has been settled, with the Petito family taking the Laundries to court, though it's doubtful if that money will ever be paid due to their now limited assets. They also won another settlement for not sharing relevant information, which again has been settled out of court. No idea what that figure is. And then there was a third one which they took out the Petito family took legal action. I believe it was a $50 million court case that they were looking for action against the Moab City Police, which was thrown out of court for the way that they handled the case. But it's a really, really sad and harrowing case. There's loads of other articles I'll also pop in our Facebook group about detailed accounts of how these different text messages that Brian sent in the days after Gabby's initial disappearance, how he kind of communicated between himself and her phone with family members. So again, I'll put that because there's a lot of messages there. I'll put the full notebook, the text messages in our Facebook group. And despite obviously the overwhelming evidence against Brian Laundrie and his own admission of the crime in his notebook, he still somehow has supporters online. And this includes multiple people on Reddit that believe Gabby was suicidal, that she was difficult, that she had caused this situation to happen because she drove Brian to the edge. And it's just, in any case we've covered where they are particularly heinous, particularly evil people, there still seems to be a minute portion of people that become fans of these individuals.
Astonishing.
And yeah, if you just pop into Google, in quotations, Brian Laundrie is innocent. Some of them are obviously dated whilst Gabby was still missing. However, there's a lot of them that are very much after the fact, which is just fucking ridiculous. In terms of all the editing on Instagram and captions being changed and pictures being deleted and words being added, Brian also deleted his own account, it's believed. So there's, again, I've got a news article about why that happened. And there was apparently, online detectives going through his posts, her posts, trying to, figure out locations. And the amount, again, talking about, I don't know if this is necessarily the same realm as fanboys, but the amount of, if you try and search for Brian's account now, the amount of similar looking accounts that have been created. Why do people do that? Just check a couple of extra underscores or one letter change. Why do people do that? It's fucking weird.
It is.
It's fucking weird. Yeah, it's fucking angry. Silly idiot. Silly buggers. Another thing that is a big part of the aftermath of this case is the amount of missing people's cases that have actually been solved through the search for Gabby. And this included a missing man's remains that were found. And also there are hundreds of missing Indigenous people. People will argue again about the missing white woman syndrome, but it's unearthed a load of extra cases that have been brought to a close as well. So again, I'll pop all of the links in our Facebook group.
And yeah, just finally, what I found really interesting is obviously watching the Netflix documentary, which we cited a few times, is their interesting use of AI and recreating Gabby's voice. Obviously, we don't need to go too deep about this, but I'm just interested to hear maybe your thoughts out there about whether this is right or wrong or a bit weird. Does it cross a line? Because obviously you could argue that voice actors could portray Gabby's persona and voice, but is it wrong for a computer to recreate that? Because it's literally not human and it's a bit strange. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I think in this circumstance it is wrong to do it. I think because Gabby didn't have a choice in it, but also in the context of what's happened, I feel like it feels wrong to me. I'm sure they would have had to have approval from the parents though. I think if it was in the context of a biography or something like that, a documentary about the person's life and it's their memoirs or something like that, and they were to do it that way, I think that's slightly different and I wouldn't be as opposed to that.
In very Ben fashion, I was like, hang on, these are text messages. Why are they being vocalized? And then it clicked that it was AI. I hadn't seen the articles and the outrage that way. So it just made me feel very, very weird. I don't know why they didn't have a narrator. if it was just to bring text messages and journal entries to life, why not just get a VO or a narrator?
Agreed. Yeah, like you said, Tom, you'd like to think that they had a discussion with the family, and if they got the family's blessing, then, okay. But I do find it crosses a line a little bit.
So that was the case of the murder of Gabby Petito. Yeah, very, very sad one, very frustrating one. And yeah, a very different one, as I said at the start of the episode. And obviously we're very interested to hear what you guys think, so do let us know in the comments below your thoughts on the case. And now it's time for the weekly segment, Spooky Corner. Welcome to Spooky Corner. Spooky Corner. So after such a sad case, I've actually picked a story that's a bit more uplifting and a bit lighter hearted. I think we need a little bit of a palate cleanser after that. And this comes from Alex, all the way over in Melbourne.
Hi, Alex.
Which is lovely. And in Melbourne, Alex, that's where my sister lives. So maybe wave her if you see her. Hello, boys. Much love from Melbourne. I'm broke as fuck, but still set aside some cash to be a proud Patreon member. Up the pod.
Amazing.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Hopefully you mean the website, though, because you get more from the website than Patreon.
Yeah, don't use Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.
The support is very much appreciated. But yeah, if you are on Patreon, switch to the website, get far more for it. You can even listen to the Minnesotas on Spotify. But yeah, enough about this. Alex, so my story feels less spooky and more uplifting, but I suppose it depends on your perspective. My nan was such a badass, and not just because she always had at least 5 lolly jars filled to the brim for whenever we visited. She migrated from Malta to Australia after World War II with barely any money and even less English, but managed to build a happy life here and raise 7 kids.
Gosh.
7 kids.
Go on, Nana.
Yeah. She does sound like a badass. She always told us stories about the ghost that lived at her house as a child. She never minded him much, but he apparently hated her dad, always pushing him down the stairs and things like that, which is quite bad. Unless it's the dad just having a few too many jars and he's like, oh, that bloody ghost.
That's where my mind went.
I was always sceptical, but she'd say, it's bloody true. You just wait. When I die, I won't truly be gone. I think she probably, the tonation was probably more like, it's bloody true. You just wait. When I die, I won't truly be gone. I think I said it a little bit too menacing there. After she passed away in 2018, my uncle was doing the final touches of prepping her house for new tenants. The entire house was bare. Nan's belongings completely gone from the place. As my uncle stood by the kitchen sink wiping the bench, he felt a sting on the back of his leg. He jolted and looked back to slap away whatever bug he assumed had assaulted his personal space. Instead, what he saw was a single orange jelly bean on the tiles behind him, as if someone had piffed it at him. Piffed, I think must be it. Oh, piffed. I lugged it.
Yeah.
That's Aussie for lugged, I imagine. We like to think Nan was just saying hello. She picked the most cynical of her children to pass on the message to. Which I like that. Whilst that could always be chalked up to a coincidence, there is one other detail that makes us think Nan stayed true to her word and never really left. Every single time we drive past our house, regardless of what car we're driving, the windscreen wipers go off a couple of times. It could be a dry day with blue skies and we could be driving my old beat up car with manual windscreen wipers and they still go off.
No way.
That's great.
That's interesting.
Wow.
I love that. Whilst I still remain cynical about ghosts, I hypocritically remain certain that my nan is still around. Keep doing what you're doing, especially if it's involving lollies.
Oh,
Alex.
Nice one, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
let's live by.
It's a lovely little...
Go on, Nana.
Yeah.
I like that. Little orange jelly bean.
Orange jelly bean.
Yeah.
The best one. The best one.
Such a good word.
It is a great word.
That reminded me of obviously spooky happenings and things like that. I don't know where you boys stand. I see it quite a lot, but I remember as we closed the Gabby case, they had like a memorial service for her, and there was a photo of both the step families together, and there was an orb in the middle of the photo. And her mum said, "That's Gabby."
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. When stories like that can provide you with comfort,
100%.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
100%. No, she did sound like a badass. But yes, thank you so much for joining us this week. As we said, a very interesting, different case to ones we tend to cover. But fascinated to hear what you think, so do let us know. If you haven't already, why not follow us on socials or follow us on Spotify or iTunes or on YouTube? Give us a cheeky little sub. We have seen subs tick over quite nicely recently, so welcome to anyone who has done that. It is lovely to have you on board. And why not leave a little comment? We'd love to hear from you. Any questions, we'd love to respond.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got 4 episodes left of the series now, which we can't wait to share with you. And if you just can't wait for those episodes, we have got a website wherein at the moment we have we're touching 200, aren't we? 198, 199.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And we're talking about doing something special for the 200th episode over on the website.
Baby.
So if you can't wait, why not head over to icmap.co.uk, join the cult, become a member, and come over and see our wonderful minisodes. Yeah, we've got some really decent ones on there, and you can access that via Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. So you can get it anywhere you want it, really.
Come on over.
From Deezer. Fucking Deezer. Hi guys, it's Ben. It's around midnight. After we've recorded, and I did say last week that we were starting to forget about the cryptic clue. We forgot this week. Hit it.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather round for some clues that can be quite cryptic, but he's going to give them to you anyway. Hope you can figure them out.
Okay. I've not even got Tom or Dan with me to judge me for this one, and it's probably one of my poorest so far. So the cryptic clue for next week's episode is... Clarice is breathing heavy. Clarice is breathing heavy. See you later.
And yes, guys, like we always say,
we say this all the time.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Just anything that the Laundrie family did. Don't do that.
45 and a 25, no need. Just chill out, slow down.
You're in a camper van, enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
Ride.
Peace. And don't be rude to the waiters if the chicken's bad.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's not their fault.
Nope. It's the chefs. If you'll never go anyone.
Yep.
But yeah. See you later, guys.
Bye.
2-pip.